All right. We are back again for episode, what are we at? 6? Episode 6. And we are here with Stephanie Sponso with Sponso Design.
Sponso Interiors.
Sponso Interior. Love it. Thank you.
No
Thank
worries.
you. And, we're actually doing a project together. So I've gotten to know you over the last couple months. It's been a great relationship. But maybe kind of let everybody know, what you do, where you kind of started out, and where you're at.
All right. Well, super happy to be here. Never been on a podcast before. This is a ton of fun. It's been great getting to know you guys, getting to know your business. You have such an awesome operation here, so it's been great to work with you so far. In terms of my business, I have a small boutique-style interior design firm based in New Haven, Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut, so I've lived here my whole life. When I first started the business, almost 4 years ago, which is wild to say that
Goes quick.
out loud, it goes so fast and somehow so slow at the same time. Started the business just about 4 years ago in northern Connecticut. Moved down to New Haven, and it's been great. It's just been me this whole time, so I manage everything, all of the invoicing, bookkeeping, and all of the design aspects, so all of the creative aspect, all of the client interaction, it's great having a small firm because I get to really get to know the clients. I'm the person who does that initial contact all the way to the person who does the renderings, the pricing, it's all me. So I look forward to hiring in the future, but for now I'm really enjoying just keeping it small and keeping it really intimate with the clients.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, obviously I know this, but like when you're talking to a proposed client, like why, and we know this, the real reason and all the reasons why an interior designer is really important for projects.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you?
Yeah. So what I love about working with you guys is that when we have a project together, I get to come on at the very, very beginning. And that to me is really when an interior designer gets to kind of flex that utility the most, because a designer is really someone who can take a concept and put it into a space. So it's not just about what fabrics do I like or what colors do I like. It's about how do I want to feel when I'm in this space? How do I want this space to function for me? How do I want the hardware to feel physically? How do I want it to smell and look and everything? It's more than just, what looks pretty, what style do I like? It's how does this reflect who I am as a core person, my values, my habits? So I think when you have a designer on board, they have the capacity to look at every single aspect of a space, from the lighting to the textiles to the layout, and really play with every single one of those factors, and crank this up and crank that down and focus on this and fade that, so that the cohesive result is something that really, really reflects the client. And as a professional, we learn how to do that. We know how to do that in a way that takes time to learn. So having a designer on board just, I think, brings incredible value. And also the money side of things. We know how to spend money wisely. We know what's good to invest on and what is better to, scale back on, depending on the client's values and needs. So I think, yes, it costs money to hire a designer, but the money will be spent well. It will be spent wisely, and it'll be done in a way that I think reflects what the client really wants.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and it's really, you hit the core point of how the space feels, right? Most people are remodeling or changing or, adding space, changing their space to create a feeling.
Yes.
And there's a lot of, it's so weird when you walk into a space and subconsciously, like, your body reacts. If it's a good or a negative, or like, it's icky, or it's like, wow, this place feels awesome. And, as an interior designer, there's little bits and pieces of components that create that. That is knowledge that you come into.
Absolutely.
And a homeowner wants to spend all this money but doesn't want to bring in somebody to orchestrate and make that feeling. It's almost don't remodel.
I completely agree with you, and I think that something that I say to prospective clients, and something that I just kind of say in general when I talk to people about being a designer, is, if you're willing to just spend 20 to 30% more the final result will be many times better than that. And so it's just, there is a value to it that I think can't be quantified, especially if it's a forever home, especially if it's somewhere that you really, really want to feel comfortable and like it reflects, you know, whatever purpose you've decided you want it to have. That extra percentage in the budget, to me, goes so far. And also, it takes away so much stress because the stress of remodeling, you know, how people feel when they go through a home remodel, it's excruciating sometimes.
Right.
So, you know, having someone to handle receiving and deliveries and keeping things up to snuff timeline wise, having someone to go through the you know, the permit department and at town hall can be a headache. So, you know, you say, here's what I want, and you just let the professionals do their thing. You spend 20 to 30% more, and the result is just, you know, out of the park compared to all of that stress to have something that, you know, could be a lot better.
You're absolutely right. If you know, remodeling is a complete disaster. I say this all the time. And so if you're going to do it once.
Yeah.
Do it right.
Yeah.
Put in the things, you know, so that you're like, hey, it was worth that 6 months or 8 months of absolute nonsense.
Yeah.
Because it's a beautiful space.
Right.
You know, it's like you can't get the view unless you climb the mountain. It's going to be a rocky climb. When you get to the top, it's worth it. But at least have the view nice at the end.
Exactly.
Instead of,
Yeah.
So, and I think, you know, we see the nuances of, say, like a kitchen remodel where there's so many, like, you know, and you can kind of talk to it, like the design of a kitchen with a kitchen triangle or the certain pullouts, all that stuff. Functionality is even more, you know, you want to think about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So what key, you know, kitchen components do you like to put in kitchens?
Well, I have to say kitchens are something that are so personal to clients. So it's hard to say, you know, one thing or the other. In terms of like an aesthetic and a feel, something that I really love is living finish hardware. So when we say living finish, it means a finish that will patina over time. So like an unsealed brass, as you use it over the years, it will patina and it gets this lovely lived-in look that's intentional and that's expected, but that's unpredictable, and it just gives it this really lovely look. That's not so much a utility thing. That's something just that I love to put in when I have clients that are interested in that. But I would say in terms of functionality in a kitchen, one thing I don't like is microwave drawers, and that is kind of a hot take.
Ooh, we got lots of photos of those. So
I know.
It's a good point. Yeah.
A lot of people love microwave drawers, and we actually, you and I just or working on a project where we just spec'd a microwave drawer. So it's not something I would put in my kitchen, but people love it. Whenever possible, I love to use appliances that are panel ready. So if you can buy appliances that can integrate with your cabinet design so that the cabinet design you choose can have a panel put onto the appliance, and it just makes your appliances totally disappear.
The little extra.
Yeah.
It feels finished.
It feels so finished, and the final look is so clean and so it just flows beautifully through the space. So again, that's not quite a utility thing, but in a way it is. It does affect the specifications process and making sure you choose an appliance that is panel ready. I would say those are a few things that I sort of.
I love what you're talking about, the touch and feel, the handles, you know, upgrading your hand. I think, you know, when we were walking with a client down in Fairfield, you were talking about replacing the doorknobs. Yeah. Because again, it's something that you touch and feel every day, and it gives that kind of the depth of the you know.
Yeah, to me, I feel like when I'm in a space, there's like evidence all over the place. Was this well thought out? And your brain can notice yes or no and why as it moves through the space. And, you know, our bodies collect information in all sorts of ways. One of those ways is touch. So to me, the things that I come in contact with in a space are going to give me that information. Is this a high quality space? So I want the rugs that are underfoot in the bedroom to be really lovely and high quality, whether it's a low pile or a high pile. I want it to be a fiber that feels really nice. And, you know, the handles, you know, you touch them all throughout the home all day. So you want the information that you get from that moment to say, this was selected with care. This is a high quality product. So yeah, it's those tactile moments, I think, add a lot.
And I think, you're talking about the rugs and stuff, like, I feel we've done so many remodels where the people didn't know how to do that last portion, and that's the furnishings. So like I feel like people are like, oh, I'll go pick that. No, don't do it.
In fact, the furnishings shouldn't even be last.
Right.
They should be at the same time.
Exactly.
The job that you and I are working on right now, we haven't even finished the kitchen and the baths yet, but I have all the materials with me right now for the rugs and the chair upholstery and the drapes, because it's all cohesive. It's very easy to say, okay, the stuff that's going to get installed by a contractor has to happen first. Right. But to me, that's another, to your point earlier about the value of a designer is, I'm going to say, how is the hardware in the kitchen going to work with the drapes in the bedroom? Right. It all has to work together. Yeah. So, yeah.
And that's a key point, because, there's free design out there. So if you want to go to Home Depot and get a free kitchen cabinet design, it doesn't work. And because honestly, you can still go to Torco, you can still go to the big bath supplier, and fixture suppliers. You can go to Connecticut Lighting, but they're not thinking about all the facets of the project.
Right. Yeah, to me, it's like those people are going to ask you, what are the dimensions and what do you like? I'm going to ask you, how do you like to spend your time? What's your favorite book? Where was your favorite vacation? Do you have any physical objects in your home right now that you can show me to tell me who you are and what moves you? So to me, it's all of that goes into it. And you have to really get to know a person to be able to design a space for them, to me. Right. So that's why I love working with my clients, because we develop a really close relationship. And I tend to find out a lot of things about their lives that, only the closest people in their lives know, because I have to know in order to design a space that really will work for them.
I love that, getting to the intimacy of remodeling and the design and the inside. It's like, people are so, well, what's the price of whatever? And construction and the, changing somebody's space is extremely intimate. We're going to be, with the client in Fairfield, we're going to be with them for 6 to 8 months of like lots of decisions, lots of like going back. There's going to be money involved. And you think about like intimate relationships. Your doctor, you go see him once a year. It's and they're held so high, but like the building remodeling industry, it's like, whoever, you're like, that's way more intimate. They're gonna be, when we remodel, the kids are there, the pets, and it's like, what's the price?
Yeah, these people are gonna have, probably every moment of the near future of their lives in these spaces. So to me, that's a huge responsibility, and it's one I take very seriously. And it's something that I feel very humbled that people trust me with these spaces, especially when, like our clients, when there's a move involved and there's new phases of life involved. It's an incredibly emotional time. So I think as a designer, knowing how to foster those relationships and knowing how to say to people, you're going to be okay. This is stressful. There's a lot going on, but you don't have to worry about it. And being someone that really is there to listen. I tell a lot of people I'm a designer, but I'm also sometimes a therapist. And that's just, it comes with the territory. And luckily, I love that kind of thing. I love working with my clients. And so it doesn't feel like work, really.
Yeah, we feel the same way, because it's a stressful time, and then the husband or the wife or the partners are fighting in front of you, and you're like having to calm everybody down. And it's quite, it can be you're absolutely right. You can be a therapist sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something I say to clients a lot at the beginning. I actually have a little portion of this intro packet that I send out to clients where I say, designing for couples and families is a completely different ballgame than designing for individuals, because I need to make sure that this is a space that you both walk into and feel like you can see yourself here. And that's really hard, especially when couples have completely differing tastes, which happens all the time. And I think that, there there are some gender like things there. Sometimes people feel like, oh, well, you know, maybe like the woman has a more feminine style, and so we should just, the whole place should just look like maybe how she wants because she's more opinionated. But I find myself always saying, like, I really want to make sure everyone here is heard. And, you know, it's certainly not always the wife. There are all sorts of people in families, whether it's the kids or the mother who doesn't live there, who have feelings about the space. And it's like, well, who's
they
using
might be
it?
writing the checkbook, so they want to.
That's true. That's true. That's
they
true.
might
The
wanna have some
stakeholders.
say.
Yeah. But yeah, I think designing for more than one person is an exceptionally tricky task. And it has to be done thoughtfully, for sure.
And I think it's expertise and the understanding of how this all works. You can't bringing in a professional like yourself very important, because you're going to tailor it based off of the feedback that you're getting. It's going to be a unique design, a unique experience for every single person. So for somebody to go on the YouTube and watch a video and think they can design their you know,
Yeah.
or read a blog or something
Yeah.
and think they can be a designer,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. And it's usually a lot of questions and then trying to tailor the specific to what the people's needs are.
Yeah, and boy, when you buy the wrong dimension curtains and they arrive and they're super wrong and you didn't read the return policy, you start thinking, I really wish I had just hired someone to do this, because there are a lot of intricacies. Or, you know, something arrives damaged and it turns out it was final sale and there goes $1,000. Yeah, there's a lot of moving pieces, a ton of moving pieces.
Yeah, you know, it's tripping over the dollars to get to the dimes when you're not, you know. When you realize doing it right the first time, getting the professionals in.
Exactly. I mean, I've never had someone walk into a space and say, I wish we had spent less money.
Right.
But I have had people walk into a space and say, I wish we spent more money.
Yeah, 100%.
Every single time. Yeah. I mean, they don't say that every single time, but every single time the finished result is there, it's always gratitude that they invested.
Yeah.
And that's how I always frame it to my clients is, don't think about it as, you know, just like spending loads of money. It's an investment.
Yeah.
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 And it pays off, and it can increase the value of your home. It certainly increases your well-being. It increases your enjoyment. I think that like there is an incredible monetary value on your emotional well-being and your enjoyment of a space.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're in it all the time. And
Yeah.
and it's you know, people's home is they're safe, their haven.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's
I think it's a lovely gesture to invest in your own space.
And I think, you know, bringing in somebody that will be candid with you as a professional. I think I've grown in my career. You're probably feeling the same way, where you don't necessarily, you stop telling people what they want to hear, but what they need to hear.
Yeah.
And you know, we're getting to the point where you're like, you're not going to be happy. I can tell right now with that budget, you're not going to be happy.
Yeah. Big time. Big time. I think, yeah, that's incredibly important. Expectation setting is, I think, when it clicked for me as a business owner, what it really means to expectation set and what it means to be willing to lose prospective clients who hear the expectations you set and don't like them in terms of what they need to be willing to spend or the amount of time something is going to take. Letting those folks go and waiting for those people who understand the value and the time that it takes for a space to be put together properly. That expectation setting is invaluable. And so I tend to over communicate with my clients. I send weekly updates every Friday. My client gets a bullet point, you know, here's what we accomplished this week, here's what you can expect from next week. You know, any meetings that we have coming up, I remind them of. That happens every single Friday, and it takes a considerable amount of time to put those emails together, but I never get emails from clients asking what's going on, where are we, what have we been doing.
And that's a lot. I mean, communication is so big in this industry because, you know, and people are always wondering, well, what's happening? And you're smart by doing that. And we try to do the same, staying ahead of it, you know, instead of being, you know, having it on the back end.
Yeah.
So time is flying, as it usually
does.
Really?
Nice. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, because, I mean, and we could talk of this forever.
Yeah.
So we definitely have to have you come back.
Yeah,
You know, come
big
back
time.
on. But I've got a couple more questions.
Okay.
What's going away for trends?
White kitchens.
Ooh, no, there's
How
not
many
gonna be a
white
lot of people
kitchens
that
do
hear
you
that.
have
Yeah,
going on right
there's
now?
not- no,
Don't do it.
I'm not. Listen, Clyde, don't listen.
Don't
But
get me wrong.
yeah.
I think I probably am about to do a white kitchen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I think my goal in design is to create spaces that when someone looks at it, they cannot say, wow, someone in 2022 put that space together and just loved what was going on at the time. And
Right.
now we got to redo it. To me, a white kitchen, an all white kitchen, not some white, but those all white kitchens are going out. I think that, and I'm so thrilled to say this, I think that maximalism is coming back. I think it's been back for a little while, but like Victorian, you know, like Rococo.
Right.
I love art history and furniture history, so you know, that like sort of late colonial style. I think that like people are tired of spaces that feel sterile and tired of spaces that feel cold.
Yep.
And I think that like color and texture and like carved woods and, you know, things like that, oil paintings are coming back. There's definitely a very, very popular like country aesthetic right now, like a minimalist, you know, like whitewashed oak and sage greens and all of those, which I think is lovely. And I decided to become a designer because I used to live in an antique house that I fell in love with and worked on remodeling. So I'm happy to see it going in that direction, that antique looking direction, because that minimalist mid-century look, I love mid-century, don't get me wrong. But, you know, it gets watered down when it's like done over and over and over. So I'm very happy to see that. I think not being afraid of color is really important.
We can get away from just straight gray.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that when we're
Please.
doing the gray cabinets
Please.
with the
No, I
gray
can't.
walls, and then you just do like a white countertop,
No.
and you're like, this is fine. So is in that theme, and I think I agree, we're seeing that too. Like we've been doing some like shower tiles that have some pretty cool designs to it, or that kind of Victorian look. Is farmhouse, is that like, are we done with that?
No more farmhouse.
No
more barn doors. No,
We just did like 2 of them, but
no.
I agree. Yeah,
You gotta call me.
I know.
Call me when
I
that
know.
happens.
The client wanted it. It's
I think farmhouse chic has its place.
Yeah.
If people listen, and I tell every client this. I said this to our clients now. I was like, I will never put a barn door in your space. And, you know, I was like, I will die before I do that. And then I laughed and I was like, well, unless you really, really love a barn door
Right.
and you really desperately want one, the client is the ultimate decider, right? But I will do everything I can to steer them in the right direction of how do we make this actually timeless? How do we make this actually you? Because they probably just like those things because they're trendy, not
Right.
because it's what they actually like.
that's the most photos they've seen. On
Exactly.
The
If you see the same photo a million times, you're going to
Yeah.
start to be like, oh, maybe I do like this. That's happened to me. I'm like, you know, a white kitchen is kind of nice.
Right.
It is. It's lovely. But,
Right.
like, it's not really, like, who I am. And I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not who the clients are if they really think about it and they really explore. And that's part of what I do at the beginning of my sort of exploration process with clients is I send them to resources I have that show them all sorts of styles so that they can start putting that vocabulary together. Because the vocabulary to say, you know, I like a Victorian transitional is not everybody has that skill. There's a vast amount of information out there. So part of what I do is to be an educator to help them develop that language to say what they actually like.
Yeah, that's interesting because you know, the more details and stuff, we're gonna have to get the carpenters that get a little bit more skilled, because back in the Victorian, I mean, the trims and like the detail of stuff was just, I mean, you know, when
How to
we're
get some guilds going again.
yeah, when we're working in
ready.
these old houses, it's just
Amazing.
like, yeah,
It's amazing.
It's that kind of stuff is exciting because it's not
Very.
like, you know. So that's what you're seeing for you. Any colors particular that you see 2024 is going to be?
Oh, well, I can say that the color of the year from Sherwin-Williams is a very, for 2024, is a very, like, pale blue, which I'm not a big blue person,
Yeah.
but their whole kind of, like, theme and concept was, I can't remember the exact name of it, but their whole theme was like a serenity, sort of like sky, clouds, lightness, but without being white.
Yeah.
So I thought that was nice. Actually, you know, I saw that at High Point Market when I was there in the fall, and seeing it in the space and seeing it used, I was like, oh, that's kind of nice. You know, I wouldn't have probably chosen that color. Now I might try it. Personally, I love like deep, rich reds. My living room is called Fading Twilight by Benjamin Moore. So anytime I can use a color that has a ton of depth and a ton of pigment, like I just absolutely will.
But I think with that, like, again, going back to having someone like yourself doing it, because I think maybe part of the reason why we moved into the gray is because like anybody could do it.
I would totally disagree with that.
Yeah?
I would say it's the opposite. Gray is the hardest color to choose.
Okay.
'Cause there's no such thing as gray.
Right.
Every single gray has an undertone.
I think, you know what?
I do know what you mean, though.
Yeah, like,
I know what
like
you mean.
going dark colors, you can get yourself in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. They have to be the right colors,
Right.
for sure. And I mean, there are people who aren't even interior designers. They are just color specialists that designers hire. When the color has to be absolutely perfect, you know, you go to a color specialist who will mix you a custom color. So don't get me wrong. I mean, it can go wrong very quickly, and there are people who are absolute experts. But there are resources out there, and companies now have a really great way of like pairing colors for you that you can feel pretty confident about. But I think people get scared. You know, you look at a color and you buy that sticky sample and you throw it on the wall. You're like, that was pretty dark. But I think, you know, like for me, I've never picked a color that I was like a little afraid of and then gotten it on the wall and been like, I regret that. It's always like, this is awesome. It's great.
Yeah, pink colors are fun. I mean, it's you know, it looks great, and then you turn the lights on, you're like, ooh. And
That's
then,
the thing. You got to have your lighting up first.
Yeah.
Before you paint.
Right. That's a very good point. We do try to at least get the electrician to come in and finish the trim.
Or you have to know what your bulb temperature will be.
Right.
So 2,700 to 3,000 Kelvin is my preference.
Yeah. And that's more of the warm, right?
Yeah.
That's
well,
warmer
3,000
than-
is mid-range.
Okay.
2,700 is a little warmer.
Yeah.
I like it. It depends on the space. If it's like a nook, 2,700.
Right.
If it's like a kitchen or a main like entryway, 3,000. If you go any higher than that on the Kelvin range, you start to feel like a hospital.
Yeah.
And you go any lower, you know, there are times I've gone lower than 2,700 for Kelvin when you want it to feel like really, really cozy. Like in my living room, I have kind of like a Victorian look, and all of my bulbs are pretty warm just because like back then that's what they were. They were all pretty yellow. So to me, it feels like authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's good now is that like most LED, you know, any decent fixture, it should have some sort of an adjustment. You know, I know a lot of the like recessed lighting, under cabinet lighting, all that stuff will have a kind of adjustment. You can kind of tone it down. Usually when we do lighting in kitchens, it's like way too much. Like it's just like way too bright. So we're like putting, you know, dimmers on everything now because it's where's then if white cabinets are going out, what do you think? What do you think? Because I mean, we're seeing a lot of colors with cabinets, but do you think? I know that one in Fairfield is like a wood grain. Do you think that's coming? Yeah.
I hope so. Well, wood grain cabinets are tough because to me, unless they are high quality, it feels forced.
Yeah.
So like if you can manage to go with a really high quality veneer for a wood grain, awesome. If not, you know, like a color isn't bad. I think for me, saturated colors with plenty of gray in them. So when we talk about like color theory, the tone of the color is how much gray it has in it. So like the difference between this spray can, which has almost, I don't know if this shows, but almost no gray in it, right? This is a very, very bright green. It's very saturated. And then if you were to add a lot more gray to that as you go down the scale, it becomes more and more kind of like palatable and it blends more easily. So really in a space, as long as you have a similar tone of colors throughout the space, like you could have green cabinets and, you know, a blue wall, and if they have the same, if they're in the same spectrum in terms of the tone, they'll work. Yeah.
I think that really demonstrates how deep this stuff is. because you know where you just kind of went into all of how everything's connecting. I think that's real. That's it's interesting. People
I wear
don't
a lot of
understand.
hats.
Yeah.
A lot of hats.
Well, awesome. I think this is the first of many.
Yeah.
Because this industry is fascinating, and we just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Where social media?
Yeah. So my business name is Sponso Interiors. My name is Stephanie. I have a showroom on Orange Street in New Haven, so I invite people to stop by there and say hello. That's where I host a lot of my meetings with clients. I have an Instagram at Sponso Interiors. I believe it's at Sponso_interiors. Most of my times on Instagram. I really need to be better about Facebook, but I would say Instagram's the main one, and then I have a website, sponsointeriors.com. Portfolio photos, a little more about and context and contact information and all that good stuff.
Love it. Well, Stephanie, it was awesome having you on.
Yeah.
Till next time.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Yep.